All right, I hope you're getting a lot out of these sessions. This is going to be a continuation of the previous discussion. We're going to focus in on 110.3b. And remember, 110.3 is your electrical safety program. The previous session was on A, general requirements, and then we had B, inspection. So grab I'll be drinking Chocolate Lab coffee from Puffy Paws. Remember, 10% discount. Use the code 2labs down below. Link is in the description. Enjoy this session with myself and Derek Vigstol, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Derek Vigstol. This is my first victim in the Dimitrovich studio. We're moving on to 110.3b. Things like that. Yeah, it's my finger.
I'm getting memories from a kid. What was that? Oh. Am I getting this old? I can't remember the Wizard of Oz now.
Oh, the Wizard of Oz, yes.
Represent the Lollipop Kids.
There you go. That's right. And you know, I was thinking of, what was Roy? Who was the really good who played on Hee Haw? Roy.
Well, now you're going back past what? I mean, do I need to phone a friend? Call my dad?
Oh man, I gotta show you a video later. Anyway, I gotta think of his name. Anyway, 110.3b inspection. Now, what 110.3b, and here's my thing is, you have 110.3b inspection and C is condition of maintenance. And we're going to take this one at a time, but I sort of tie both of those together. But let's talk about B, inspection. And it says that your safety program has to include elements to verify that newly installed or modified electrical equipment or systems have been inspected to comply with applicable installation codes and standards prior to being placed into service. So this is talking, it says installation codes and standards. It says
yes.
Applicable installation codes and standards. So I being in the codes and standards world, I hang on to every word.
Right.
Because it's like you're on the stand. It's like a legal.
Well, every word matters.
Every word matters. And when it says applicable, so if and what I go back to is I worked at a nuclear power plant. It was built in the 70s. And I go to the job site and I had my 1990 code book because that's the year that I was there. It's pretty bad. So it's when I graduated college, right? So I go down and I have my 1990 code book and they said, well, what are you doing with that? I said, well, this is my code book. We're going to design stuff. I'm going to follow it wasn't 93 yet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
so,
well, do you
want it was the latest and greatest at the time, right?
Right. And they said, no, this plant was built in 72 or 76. That's the code that we follow. And I just could not wrap my head around that. But the questions that I asked whenever I would install something, or like we did motor control center change out buckets, we did a bunch of stuff in the plant, and I was called upon to follow the 70s whatever edition of the code book.
Right.
But I would always look at the latest code book and see what the differences were. As an engineer, I want to make sure I do the right things. But this says that I've been inspected to comply with applicable installation codes and standards prior to being placed into service.
Yeah. So I think you run a risk. So to go back to your friend, the contractor statement about how you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants at that point. When you take that approach like the plant did and say, okay, well, we're going to follow 1972 or whatever. And there's some underlying things there. So we'll take it out of a nuclear power plant. We'll make it a big box store or a manufacturing facility. And they say, well, this building was built in 1972, so we're going to follow the older codes. Problem with that is you have this general duty clause in OSHA that a lot of time we forget about,
Ooh.
that says the employer has a responsibility to provide their workers a workplace, and a workplace that is free from known and recognized hazards.
Okay, is that 1910 or 26?
That's 1910. Well, that's
19
not 1910 or 26.
Oh,
That's OSHA Act.
okay,
That's a
okay.
responsibility statement. That's
Yeah, yeah,
section
yeah, yeah.
5 in the law, right? So I mean, this is the big kind of it gets a bad rap. We call it the umbrella citation section, or whatever you want. But that's like the purpose statement in the NEC or 70E. That is OSHA's purpose statement. And
That-
and so if we say, if somebody were to get hurt in that facility
yeah.
because they followed the 1972 code, but the 1990 code had something that would have protected them. Oh, I don't know, like GFCI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they get hurt. Now they have to have a really difficult conversation with an OSHA official that says, wait a second, there are new rules that are put out that are adopted in this jurisdiction that you're choosing not to follow. How are you meeting that general duty clause statement as your responsibility as an employer to your
Wow.
employees?
Never thought about that. That's a very good point. Because we have to think about and the relationship is OSHA is the shall,
Right.
70E, 70, and
the
everything
NEC
else is the how.
Yeah. And so even to the point, like, it would have been one thing if your jurisdiction said all installations shall follow the 1972 NEC.
Yeah.
Then that's the applicable code. But if the local jurisdiction says all installations under our purview shall follow the 1990 code, now there's issues, like I said, with the nuclear power plant, because I think that probably is outside the realm of NEC world.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but if the latest and greatest is what's adopted in, or sorry, not adopted necessarily, but what has been incorporated into the rules and regulations of that jurisdiction,
Wow. That's a very, I never,
you've got to be following.
so you've got to think about and unfortunately, we always have to think about if something happens and you're on the stand, how do you defend your
Right.
decision? And that's why what I would do, what I always did, and I'm sure other engineers in our group did the same thing. I looked at what the latest code said. Like we did a lot of motor controls and we did control circuits and things
Right.
like that. And overcurrent protection. I would look at what the latest code said, and I would look at what the 70s edition. If I saw something that I thought was better, I would engineer it into my drawings,
Right.
and then that's enforceable just from an AHJ perspective. If I wasn't in a power plant, to your point, power plant's not covered by the NEC, but that doesn't mean I can't follow the NEC, right?
Right.
It's not inspected to that, but and maybe some facilities, some
certain parts of the power plant
are, yeah, But if I just take that and go to my commercial experience in designing a commercial or an industrial power system, yeah, the plant might have been built in 1954, but as a design engineer, we have to build something that is safe. And if we've recognized hazards since 1954,
Right.
and then we implement them. And again, it's how do you defend your design?
Right. And the other issue you run into with the NEC, because jurisdictions choose which NEC they want to put in force, right? And so the NEC is kind of like, I mean, the only other NFPA document that really is close to that is, well, there's two of them, NFPA 101 and 99, because they get adopted by government organizations like Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and things like that. So they're a few cycles behind, but not like the NEC. That's different. It just takes them that long to review it.
Sure.
Whereas the NEC, you have legislators specifically going in and saying, well, they made a bunch of changes we don't like in the new NEC, so we're not going to follow it. We're not going to make the adjustment yet.
Right.
Or we're not going to go to the next one. But 70E is not a document like that. So 70E, when the new one gets published, then the old one is out the window.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So
yeah.
so the problem though is the new edition of 70E is based on the new edition of the NEC. So if something changes in the NEC, 70E is move progressing with following the rules in the NEC, and then your local jurisdiction has not.
Oh man.
So how do
Yeah.
you even now the saving grace is 70E is just one way to comply with the OSHA standards.
Sure.
And OSHA is still stuck in shoot, I think like
Yeah.
1984 kind of stuff.
Oh, I know.
You know, in which it literally takes an act of Congress to get anything through an OSHA. And honestly, I mean, right now, you think they're going to sit down and start squabbling over
Mm.
approach boundaries? Like,
No,
I don't think
there's so
that's
many-
on the docket right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of little details. I mean, there's the approach boundary. There's new technologies that are coming out, solid state circuit breakers.
Right.
And you look
Clearing
and say,
times
well,
you can get in.
the OSHA language
Nanoseconds.
is, in the OSHA language doesn't recognize, the OSHA language says it has to have separable contacts the whole bit, right? Well, what if electronic digital breaker doesn't have separable contacts? Well, you got to follow those rules. And those rules were written way before we had new technologies.
Right.
So, okay. So I'm going to say inspection. We're still talking inspections.
It's a
Who
tough
does
one.
the inspection?
I would say the employer's got to do that inspection. The employer's got to make sure they have to put a process for verifying the QA QC stuff in.
But it
in
says
their-
installation, right? So
Yeah.
if I have, let's say that I'm in my house and I'm going to add a new circuit because I needed, I bought this newfangled video equipment and it cost a ton of money, and I need to pull a circuit in here, and I hire an electrician, and the electrician comes into the house and he pulls the circuit, and then I then, even if I don't have to pull a permit for it here in West by God, Virginia, okay, even if I don't have to pull a permit for it, I am still responsible for an
Making
inspection
sure it was
to make sure it was
inspected,
installed correctly.
Mhm.
Now, I may not be qualified to do that. I might have to hire somebody.
Well, and we do this all the time, right? Because a lot of times, a lot of the installations, jurisdiction won't have the requirement for an electrical inspection for everything, or they just aren't aware of the fact that they even have to pull a permit to bring in a new piece of equipment.
Sure.
They say, well, we got this 100 amp feed that's already here from the old piece of equipment, and we bring in the new piece of equipment and we hook it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did you make sure the new piece of equipment can handle the old system? Like, there's a whole bunch of things that go in there. And so for me, that section has always been more than just requiring an electrical inspector come look at it. Because if we just say your ESP has to make sure that an electrical inspector comes and looks at it, we're going to fall on our face on that one, right?
Yeah.
There's more there, because it really puts the responsibility on the employer. And I think the key is in the language there where it says elements of your ESP shall be there to verify that your stuff's been installed properly, right?
What it says? It says the electrical safety program, the ESP,
Mm-hmm.
shall include elements to verify that newly installed or modified electrical equipment or systems
Right.
have been inspected.
Yeah. So that doesn't have to be
An
a
electrical.
local electrical inspector.
Right.
It could be.
It could be somebody, you could sit down and say, look, I've got Derek Vigstol. I hired him. He is a code expert. He sits on this panel and that panel. I'm going to make sure that anything that happens in my plant, he verifies.
Yeah. And lots of places do that. I've got several clients who have a whole department on QA QC. And some of their sharpest minds in the electrical installation world live in that department, because when a contractor comes on their site, there's going to be things that are going to get installed without a permit and an inspection.
Yeah.
So you still have to have that QA QC thing over the top of other people doing work.
Right. Now and I could see a company having that internal debate about, do we hire employees, have to pay their salaries, have to pay the benefits, they're going to have vacation days, all this good stuff, or do we hire contract people to come in and do this for us?
And then there's all idea of the third party evaluation bodies and coming in and inspecting it from that side of it. And, and
Well, yeah, you got to look at what are your local. So you may have local laws that say when you do X, Y, and Z, you need to pull a permit or whatever.
Right.
But typically on some of these larger industrials that I don't know. I can't speak to everywhere across the country, but I'm sure there's probably a lot of areas that don't have to pull any permits and don't pull permits whenever they make changes or modifications internal to the facility, but they're responsible for any of those changes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the biggest places I see this is power plants. I've done a ton of safety audits on power plants because especially these ones that are privatizing with deregulation in the market.
Sure.
So now a private equity firm owns them and they don't know anything about anything when it comes to that. And they hire an operator to come in and operate the plant. Well, they're taking it over from utility where the utility linemen and their workers were all super well trained and all this stuff. But a lot of that system was set up kind of wild west.
Yeah.
By the linemen. And then when you replace those people with not the same level of skills, because now we're dealing with an operating company as opposed to a utility company, then all of a sudden it's like, well, how do we... Yeah, you don't have to pass an inspection. You're not required to have your stuff inspected when it's replaced,
right,
per the local law. But who in the building knows that it was installed correctly? And I had several plant managers tell me, "Well, we take the contractor's word for it."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's
And I hate to say the big ugly gorilla sitting in that corner there right now, but what's the name of the game in electrical contracting? Get it done as cheap and fast as possible and safely. We, as contractors, we want to do it safely.
Yeah, but you're right.
If there's a way for us to save some money on a job,
sure,
we're going to take it.
You need checks and balances.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you've got inspections. We know we have challenges. We know that there's a responsibility there. There are some challenges. It has to be built into your safety program, and it doesn't have to be a third party necessarily. It could be somebody on your staff.
Yep.
Right. Somebody who's qualified. Well, that's a whole nother topic. Jeez. As soon as I said the Q word, I was like, oh man. Did that actually come out of my mouth?
Where's my phone? I'm going to rebook my flight on Thursday. I'm not going home this week.
No, but you know what? The qualified person is in here somewhere, I'm sure, in the risk assessment, I think. Anyway, okay. Anything else on inspections?
Now, let's get to the condition of maintenance.
All right. So condition of maintenance.
Well, this helps us to answer, I think, a lot of the questions we had in the inspection.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that session, and there are going to be more sessions, so keep in mind, I broke this 110.3 discussion. This was an over 3-hour review of the safety program. I tell you, it's a phenomenal series that you need to watch them each as they move along, and grab your edition of 110.3, your NFPA 70E book, follow along, and remember, you can comment on all of these videos. Leave notes down in the chat, and if you have questions, put those against this video so that I can put them in context. So I moved these videos into manageable chunks so that you can watch them from beginning to end and not have to pause a 3-hour long video. So Derek and I stayed up pretty late this night to get this done, and I'll tell you, there's a wealth of information in here. I know I learned during the whole debate discussion. So I hope you get something out of it. Thanks for joining in on Shock Week. I hope you're enjoying the entire week as we close out May, National Electrical Safety Month. So thanks for what you do for electrical safety. Keep up the great work. Together we'll make a difference and maybe save some lives at the end of the year. So like Derek says in one of these videos, we're looking for that 1 year of 0 incidents. We can make that happen together. So I hope you're enjoying the programs. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and you'll be notified anytime we go live in the future. Enjoy.